Please welcome to the stage Steve Dye, Assistant City Manager of the City of Allen, Texas, as he shares how to follow so others will trust.
Well, good afternoon. As I understand it, I'm the only thing between you all and happy hour. So I'm going to try to stay on time, but it really is a privilege and an honor to be here. I want to thank Ron and Jennifer and the entire SGR team for giving me this opportunity. I'm going into my 40th year of public service. Sir, I know what you're thinking. I started when I was 5. Thank you for that. 35 years of that as a police officer and 5 years in city management. I'm actually transitioning back into policing, my true passion. I love Mayor Parker's words about how elected officials should always treat staff with civility. I think that is so important on what you all and we do. But my first passion really is policing. So a week from today, a matter of fact, at this exact time in 1 week, I will become the next Allen police chief. So if you ever need anything in Allen, thank you. If you ever need anything in Allen, let me know. If you get stopped for speeding, do not mention my name. So anyway, just a pleasure to be here. I'm not going to spend too much time on my background. I did start in 1984 as a Houston police officer. My whole life, I wanted to do nothing but be a police officer. And by the grace of God, I've gotten to live out that dream. And I think that's so important in what we do is to follow our passion so we really know that every day when we come in, we're not only making a difference, but we're actually called to serve in what our purpose and our why is on this earth. So what we're going to talk about today is how to follow so others will trust. So you show me any great leader, and I will also show you a great follower. You see, following is not about chain of command structure. It's about how we treat each other, how we gain that trust. So we're going to work today to understand how we can follow so others will trust. And I hope this will be helpful. So what can we do as an employee that will inspire others to trust us, right? What can we do to garner that trust in others? Well, let's go through a few things that I think were important and have been important in my career. First of all, show up, be on time, be engaged, and be prepared. I mean, come on, it's common sense, right? Not so much. Who's a supervisor or above in this room? Raise your hand. You would think that that was common sense, right? It's not. So how do we make sure that we show up, be on time, be engaged, and be prepared? It takes thought, it takes discipline, and we have to create that template for others to follow. And none of that you see on that first bullet point, none of that costs you any extra time or money or education. Exceed performance expectations. If you want others to trust in you, performance expectations, we've all got them. To me, all that is what do you have to do to keep from getting terminated, right? Think about it. Performance is really the baseline, the basic expectations of any position. So if we want others to really trust us, we want to inspire that trust, let's exceed those expectations. Let's do the extra. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and break it to you for you younger generations in here. When we say be timely, responsive, and extensively communicate, us older generations, we don't always trust the cloud. When we send you an email, we love to know that you actually got that email, okay? Don't make us guess, and I'm joking here, but I'm not. The things that you're going to see today and that I'm talking about today, I actually ask others that I've worked for, what made you trust me? What did I do to inspire trust? Or people that I've supervised, why did you trust me? And this is a really important one. We're all busy, but take time to timely respond to others in the organization or those that you serve and extensively communicate. I think one of the most important things that leaders do is communicate, but it's one of the things that they sometimes do the least of. Because why? Because we're all busy. But you cannot over-communicate. So be timely responsive, and extensively communicate. Never make others, whether it's your boss, a peer, or subordinate, never make others guess what's going on. Communicate with them. And it doesn't always need to be by email. Sometimes it needs to be that face-to-face. Build a reputation of dependability and as a trusted team member. Well, what does that mean, Steve? That's pretty generic sounding. No, it's really not, because you know what? As a boss, and trust me, I was on the line level 20 years. I was a police officer 20 years before I ever promoted. I spent half my career doing the work at the line level. And I can tell you what that means is I know in my organizations that I've worked in, I know that when I give someone an assignment or ask a favor, or my boss needs something from me, because we've all got a boss, and if you don't have one professionally, then just go home. You've got a boss. You know, I know that there's certain people that when I ask them to do something or give them an assignment, I will never have to worry about that again. I will never have to check on it. I won't have to worry if it's going to be completed in a timely manner. I know that it's going to be done. And there are others that I have to shepherd. I have to keep that email in my inbox to check on it periodically. So be that person that has that reputation of dependability when you're given an assignment, or you've got a project or initiative, or a citizen needs something from you. They know that you're going to follow through, be responsive, and get it done. And when your team member needs help, you're there for them. You're there for them. We all need help from time to time. Be that person that they know when I need help, that person next to me is going to give me that hand up. I'm going to be that person that they can depend on. Because why? Because we're a team. Lead by example. Okay, well, Steve, what does that mean? Well, you know obviously what that means. That obviously means your work ethic, your demeanor, how you carry yourself. But it's also the intangibles. We all have bad days. But if someone goes by your desk or your cubicle or your office and half the time you say hello and half the time you don't, you're not really leading by example. Who in here supervises others? Raise your hand. Okay. However you treat your people that you supervise, that is how they're going to treat others below them, and that's how they're going to treat the public that we serve. So you've got to lead by example. When you've worked 80 hours a week and you're tired and you're coming in on Friday and it's the end of the day and somebody comes by your office to share something with you, ask you a question, or receive direction, or you go in to give that to someone, it doesn't matter that you're tired and it's the end of the week, because that may be the only time you interact with that employee for the next month. You got to be on your A game. You got to lead by example. And you know what? It's not easy. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody could do it. But when you do it, it's what? It's the most rewarding professional feeling that you'll ever have. Exhibit energy and passion. We just talked about that. You got to bring your A game. You got to bring your A game if you want others to bring their A game. And don't just process the work. You know, in my opinion, organizations are never moving laterally. Whether you're in the private sector or the public sector, you're always on the incline or the decline. You're never static. Well, good organizations do a really good job of processing the work. But you know what great organizations do? They don't just process the work. In addition to processing the work, they innovate, they progress, they create a culture where everybody else wants to come be a part of. What's the most important thing in your work environment? If you ask your employees, what is the main reason that I'm here? Money will almost never be the number one factor. Almost never. Culture, culture, culture. Their work environment. We have 2 daughters. My wife and I have been married 33 years. By the grace of God, she's put up with me that long. We have 2 daughters. They're grown. They're both public servants, very successful. When they were growing up and they would have a moment, they got tired of hearing me say PMA, PMA, positive mental attitude. Because I would say, girls, my dad used to tell me, fare is something that you pay to get on the bus. Okay, that's what fare is. Life is not always fair. Don't be a victim. You're not always going to be handed the best or dealt the best hand. Don't be a victim. 95% of what happens to you in your life is how your attitude processes that information. It's all about attitude. Don't be a victim. Positive mental attitude, PMA. You may have to take a moment, take a deep breath. We all get frustrated. Positive mental attitude will garner trust. And be coachable. Look, I don't like to be criticized. Nobody does, but we can't be defensive, because the minute that you think that you've got it all figured out, you're already in trouble. You've got to know what you don't know, and you've got to know that sometimes, even though you did something that you thought was spectacular, there may be another way to do it. And oh, guess what? If your boss doesn't like the way you did it, and they like to do it this way, and that way is ethical, and it meets the goal, guess what you need to do? You need to do it that way. And then when you're the boss, you can do it your way. Be coachable. And you know what? Maybe you'll learn something. Be open-minded. We don't have it all figured out. And just like our external service should always be to the community, our default answer is always yes. If you have to get to a no, you may start with yes. As long as it's ethical, start with yes. You know, I think sometimes in public service, because we all know dealing with the public is not always a pleasure and a joy, right? Sometimes that can make us a little cynical. Sometimes we can get a little grumpy. Sometimes we can figure out ways when it's just easier to say no. But if you talk to anybody that got into public service, they'll always tell you the same thing. They got into public service because they what? They wanted to make a difference. They wanted to help people. They wanted to make the world a better place, right? Well, how is it 5 or 10 years down the road we lose them? How does that happen? How do we lose them? That loses trust with the communities we serve. So our default answer always needs to be the yes, and let's not figure out ways to say no unless we have to. When somebody calls you, whether it's internally or outside of the organization with those you serve, okay, guess what, folks? If you're a citizen and you need help, so during the ice storm a couple of years ago, I was at City Hall every day. You know why I was at City Hall? There was nothing for me to do at City Hall. I was city manager I was deputy city manager, COO in Grand Prairie. You know why I was at City Hall every day? Because people needed help and they couldn't get through to Atmos or Encore or the state government or the federal government. And I knew what they could do. They could get through to the city. When people call you, they know that you can actually answer the phone and give them, at least listen. You can be there for them. Our local government level is the only level that the citizens can get in touch with whenever they need something. And while it may not be our job, let's not say, well, we can't help you. Let's not say, well, you need to call, okay, ma'am, there's a pothole on my street and it's really dangerous. Is there something you could do to help me? Well, sir, you'll have to call TxDOT. And I love our partners at TxDOT, but how are they going to call TxDOT? How is that going to work for them? How are they going to even find out who to talk to at the state level, right? So our attitude needs to be, you know what? I'm going to write that information down. That's the state highway, but I'm going to get a hold of the state for you to try to help you. That's the default answer of yes that inspires trust. And then internally, take on the projects that nobody else wants. Y'all know what those projects are. We all know, right? You know what impresses those around you and those that supervise you is when you're the person that says, you know what, I'll do that. I'll do that one. And guess what? In that process, you may just learn something. So be that person that will take on that project that no one else wants. So how do we keep from getting too frustrated when it seems like our supervisor doesn't trust us? This is a really good one, right? So how do we keep from getting frustrated? You're working hard, you're doing all the right things, you're on time, you're prepared, you're taking on the projects nobody else wants, you got a good attitude even when you're tired, you're Mr. or Mrs. Cheerful, but you still feel like, I'm just getting frustrated because I just don't feel like he or she trusts me. Well, first of all, be patient. Be patient. You see, In my opinion, and I teach another class with a gentleman named Marcel Brunel, many of you know him, we agree that relationships, how do relationships start? Well, I'll even back up one step. I think most of what we do in life is based on relationships. Would y'all not agree? Whether it's in your personal life, your worship, your professional life, 90% of what we do in life is probably based on relationships. Well, how does a relationship start? It starts with some type of interaction that leads to some type of rapport. Would you agree with that, sir? So we relationship, we have an interaction, we build some type of rapport, and then what can happen then? If we're treating others with the respect and dignity that each deserves, that rapport then can grow into trust, right? Again, some of our younger professionals in here, I can say this because I'm a baby boomer. We all do it, but I feel like sometimes you all may be a little impatient. We're so worried about the next promotion or the next job. We just need to be patient. Our time will come. The way you get that next promotion or that next job is by doing a great job where you're at. Be patient. You can't build a rapport overnight, and that rapport through that relationship can't develop trust overnight. It takes time. Be patient. It will come. Be consistent. Have you all know the people in your organizations, they say, man, I've never heard John say a bad word about anybody. Man, you know, John's never late. You know, Susie, she's always cheerful. And yeah, they're always so helpful. Be that person. Be consistent. I'm not asking you to be perfect because none of us are. But be consistent with your values, your work ethic, and how we treat others. And then finally, be persistent. Well, Steve, what is that? How's that really different than consistent? Well, I'll tell you, as you build trust in the organization and you have aspirations to move up within that organization or within that profession, be persistent in communicating as you build that trust, your goals to those above you. You know, Tom Hart was my city manager when I was chief of police in Grand Prairie, and he told me a story one time. He said, Steve, he said, I had a director come up to me, got passed over a couple of times for an assistant city manager promotion. Director finally comes to my office and said, Tom, why have you never promoted me? Tom said, simple. You never ask. You never ask. How can we help you, once we build that trust, how can we help you promote to where you want to be if we don't know what your goals are? Now, I think great leadership involves asking what those goals are, but nobody's going to advocate for you professionally more than you. As you build trust, don't be shy. Now, I don't want you in the office every day asking when you're going to get promoted. Even though you're thinking it, that's okay to think it. But what are the means to the end? The means to the end of the promotion are what we've just talked about. But then I want you to build trust, and I want you to articulate that to those that can not just internally promote you, but go have a cup of coffee with somebody who is sitting in the chair that you want to be sitting in. Whatever chair you want to be sitting in, I want you to have a cup of coffee and introduce yourself if you don't already know that person. I want to do what you're doing. I want to be what you are professionally. Because let me tell you, when people have done that to me, I love it. I'm honored. I'm flattered. We will always make time, almost always. All the professionals that I know will make time for you. We are just so flattered beyond belief that you wanted to pick our brain. Network and sit down with people who are sitting where you want to be, or exhibit those qualities that you want to exhibit. So personal experiences that have helped me garner trust. You know, I didn't really know how to really come about this. So what I did is either through direct conversations or indirect conversations, I kind of queried those that I've worked for. One of them is sitting to my right. Jennifer Fadden was the city manager that for some crazy reason decided to give me my first chief's job in Colleyville some years ago. Thank you, Hillary. And so some of the things that have been in my path, that the feedback that I've gotten is, Steve, you demonstrate a set of values. Now, sometimes that's difficult, and sometimes you have to be careful. You know, there is sometimes a clear separation of your personal values and your professional values as a public servant, right? Because we can't always impose our personal values into our professional work. We have to be very sensitive that others may have different personal values. But I want you all to always strive to demonstrate those values professionally that people want to emulate. So demonstrate those values, the character values. How are we treating our team members? How are we helping? Hey, my work is done today. How can I help you? Can I help you with anything? Every time I talk to my boss, I always try to say when we end the conversation, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything I can offload to help you with? Demonstrate those values. Doing the extra, not just what is asked of me. And it's not always the big projects. When you have ideas, you have initiatives, you have thoughts, act on those. What can I do beyond? So let me translate that into public service and what I probably know best is as a police officer. When a police officer goes to a call, what I think great organizations do is when that police officer finishes taking that report or helping that person with whatever it was they called about, sir, is there anything else I can help you with? Ma'am, we're done here now, but you know what? It's late at night, so I'm gonna go ahead and follow you home because I know you live close. I'm gonna make sure you get there okay because I know your car's been acting up. What can we do beyond what's in front of us? That can work in an internal environment or that can work in an external environment with our service to the citizens. But what is the extra that we can do? Because see, that's what really separates that great level of service from that average level of service. And you know what's gonna happen? That person, whether it's a teammate or a community member, they're gonna remember that. That may just be another day for you, but they're gonna remember that act of kindness or grace. It will impact them. And then what are they likely to do? What are they likely to do? Many times they are likely to pay that forward. So that makes our community stronger. That makes our organization stronger. That makes each other stronger. Work ethic and leadership. So Mitch Bates was my chief of police in Garland. I have a very unusual career path. I was a motorcycle police officer. At the urging of my wife, after 20 years, I took one promotional test in Garland, civil service. It was a written exam. I made a good score on the written exam. I was a supervisor. 7 months later, I was an assistant chief of police. It makes no sense. So in 7 months, I went from riding a motorcycle and writing tickets and investigating accidents to being an assistant chief with the Garland Police Department. Don't ask me why, but that's what God put in my path. My first day on the job, Annette, my assistant, brings in a stack of paperwork. She puts it on my desk as a brand new assistant chief. I'm so proud. I take that stack of paperwork. I thank her. Annette, have a good morning. Thank you. I start going through the paperwork, and I literally started laughing out loud. I take all the paperwork. I walk across the hall to my chief's office. I said, Mitch, I don't know what any of this means. So, like we talked about, know what you don't know. Don't be afraid to ask for help. One of the things I'll always remember, he says, he started laughing. And as he's laughing, I'm thinking, well, maybe he's regretting the decision to promote me to assistant chief. He said, Steve, don't worry about it. That's the easy part. I can't teach leadership. I can't teach the leadership that you exhibit I can teach you that paperwork in 15 minutes. So that only came because we had formed a bond of trust. You see, he was my supervisor when I was a patrol officer. I never knew that he was going to be chief and I was going to be assistant chief. I wasn't auditioning for a promotion. I was just able, for whatever reasons, to garner trust, which leads me to my last example, and then we'll wrap up for questions. Ron Hollifield, sitting back there to my right, who is now a good friend of mine, did the recruitment process for Jennifer Fadden when I was hired by her as her chief of police in January of 2010. A year and a half later, I walked into her office. I said, ma'am, I'm so sorry, but Grand Prairie has called. It's a larger city. It's been on my radar. I hate that it's only a year and a half, but I prayed about it, and I think I'm going to pursue that opportunity. It was a very tough decision for everyone. Unbeknownst to me, both Jennifer Fadden and Ron Hollifield called the Grand Prairie city manager, Tom Hart, and put in a very positive reference for me in that process, unsolicited. Why are you telling this story, Steve? I'll tell you why. Because Ron Hollifield had to redo that search for Colleyville for free, and he knew he was going to have to redo it for free if I left. But A, that shows their character. They were, I think, sad that I was leaving. Ron was going to have to go to great lengths to do the recruitment process again. But I had formed a relationship, I hope, with these two fine individuals through garnering trust. And so you never know who is going to play a role in your future. Don't work hard and treat people like you want to be treated and do the extra because you want or need something. Do it because it's the right thing to do to help each other. That will lead to trust, and then you never know who's going to play a role in your future. But because of them, I'm where I'm at now. So thank you all so much. I think we've got a few minutes left for questions. Any questions from anyone, virtually or in the audience? Okay, I don't see any. Mike, you guys see any questions? Anybody? Well, thank you again. Anything?
No, I don't think so.
Thank you again for your time. I promised you I would get you out of here on time. I'm going to be around in the foyer if you think of anything you want to talk to me about. I certainly don't have nearly all the answers, but I will certainly be glad to help you in any way I can. And God bless you all for your service to our public and to each other. Have a good afternoon.